Welcome into Can We Just Talk? This is Troy DiSavino. This week I am joined by Chris Sakonis, Jacob Berg, Austin DiSavino, and Steven Nelson. Again, this is Can We Just Talk? It's a show where it doesn't matter if you live under a rock, because if you do, we'll fill you in on what you missed from this past week's biggest events, stories, and developments in a nice casual conversation. On the docket for this week, we've got a fascinating story about Facebook and QAnon. There's some regulation going on over there to see what we're actually allowed to see as viewers. The election, and there's a lot of Betfair exchanges, a lot of bets being placed on this one. So make sure to stay tuned to find out what the spreads are. Trevor Lawrence has got COVID. That's a massive story that we'll get into in a little bit. I'm sure that one will get a little heated. And then finally, to wrap it up, we've got a fascinating story about a very expensive rock floating around in space, valued around $10 quintillion. So make sure to stay tuned. We'll get to all that. Again, this is Can We Just Talk? Let's get going. First up for this week, I told you earlier in the show, we've got an interesting story about Facebook. They are cracking down on QAnon hashtag Save Our Children. Again, that's the hashtag Save Our Children. That hashtag's been circulating around for a little while. I mean, this conspiracy's been really brought up into the light with the election coming up. QAnon has been known as the conspiracy group that has backed Donald Trump for some strange reasons. One of them we'll get into in a second, but the hashtag Save Our Children is now being regulated on Facebook. This story coming from CNN Business. Again, quote from this one is, Facebook will expand its action against QAnon by restricting hashtag Save Our Children, one of the hashtag supporters of this conspiracy theory often append to their social media post. Starting Friday, the company will be limiting the distribution of the hashtag, spokesperson Emily Kane said in a statement to CNN Business, meaning that posts using this hashtag will have their visibility reduced in the newsfeed, and people clicking on the hashtag will not be able to see the aggregated results. Instead, they will see a link to the list of credible child safety resources, Kane added. Now, I'll open this up. Are you guys familiar with QAnon and why this hashtag is around? Does anyone? I mean, I know a little bit about it. I'm sure. I don't know if you guys listened to it. It was an awesome podcast, The Rabbit Hole. It was by the New York Times. They did a deep dive into it for a little bit. But does anyone have a really good background on why the Save Our Children is prevalent? If not, I can give the explanation.
I believe you can probably give a little bit more detail. This is Austin. I'm speaking. Thank you for having me back again. But I believe it's because they believe there is a child sex trafficking circle or something like that.
Conspiracy
conspiracy. Okay.
That's the conspiracy that's circulating. They think that the Democrats, specifically including Hillary Clinton, prominent figures in the Democratic Party, QAnon believes that they're the leaders of a child sex trafficking ring. So this is the hashtag Save Our Children that has emerged, and now Facebook is kind of regulating and not allowing the circulation of hashtags that could be very devastating to the Democratic Party during this time period. So it's interesting to see now Facebook kind of cracking down, trying to make up for what happened 4 years ago in the 2016 election. Chris, Steven, Jacob, any initial thoughts you guys have on this? Or I don't know how too familiar you are with the story.
I just wish that Facebook had taken this action before a disturbingly large portion of the American electorate bought into the Democratic pedophile ring conspiracy. I think I saw some polling that said it was something like between 1 in 4 and 1 in 5 of American voters believe in this theory. I kind of wish if Facebook had caught on to this 2 years ago when it was starting to spread and circulate, maybe we wouldn't be in a position where so many voters believe something so blatantly insane and wrong.
Well, I don't think it's completely insane. This is Steven Nelson. I'm going to put my mark on this. I mean, Bill Clinton was there's photos of Bill Clinton with Jeffrey Epstein on those planes. Like, he was like really good buddies with them.
Yeah, that's where this derives from. So there's
but does that mean
for more background onto what this is, to explain what he's saying, the Save the Children charity has nothing to do with QAnon, first of all, so that's why this was taken down. But the background comes into it this is coming from QAnon followers. This is the quote: "Children need to be saved from the cabal of evil Democrats." It is essentially the same conspiracy theory that was pushed as part of the Pizzagate in 2016, which falsely alleged a Washington, D.C. pizza shop was the center of a child sex trafficking ring. Some of these allegations are made because you're right, there was ties to Jeffrey Epstein, sorry. And that's kind of where this all really started. and that's where this is really brought to light. So for one, yes, there are conspiracy theories with this, but the problem that Facebook is having now is like, yeah, conspiracy theories are interesting, but when it comes to like a ginormous election of, utmost importance, it's tough when Facebook was being criticized 4 years ago for spreading false information. And not that anyone, it seems a little far-fetched to me, that's just my opinion, but not that anyone can prove one way or the other. It's all kind of, it's foggy. When it's at that level of the government, it's foggy with what's going on. It has to do with all the emails that Hillary Clinton deleted, and you could really take a whole deep dive into that. But that's kind of why this is such a mysterious topic, and Facebook just doesn't want that to be the main headline that comes up when you look into, Biden's campaign, especially for someone who really wasn't talked about in Pizzagate in 2016. This was a Clinton thing.
I think anytime a corporation though begins to meddle in legislating ethics, that's where things turn foggy and things turn gray and things turn not black and white, right? Like the NFL tries to legislate ethics, and what do? They get it wrong at every single turn. If Facebook is going to try to legislate ethics, there's always going to be someone that's going to be unhappy. Now, I can say I do not support anything QAnon or QAnon. I think it's QAnon. I think it's conspiracy theories. I think it's dangerous. I understand, like, if the Clintons have a connection to Jeffrey Epstein and that entire circle, yes, I think there should be unbiased justice brought to those crimes. But I do think it's dangerous when things are like when they're taking it all across all Democrats, because Bill Clinton, that's like if I go outside and I say, hey, the sun is hot, that means we're all going to burn up. We should all repent our sins and commit mass suicide. Just because a single portion of that statement is true, that the sun is hot, doesn't mean that everything else is true.
Yeah, Austin, I want to go back to your point about sort of corporate governance, and I just have seen the documentary, The Social Dilemma. I don't know if others have seen that, but
I saw that.
Pretty interesting, I guess, kind of expose, but it's well written about how, social media sites use your data to kind of keep you active and keep you into things and possibly turn you towards, some of the more conspiracy theory or, far right, far left, extremist type of groups. But I do think Austin does bring up a good point about, the difficulties with corporate governance. Like, how should Facebook deal with this fact that, like, people are going on Facebook all the time and reading things and believing them without doing further research? It's obviously tough to ask, Facebook to be the ruler of right and wrong and to police everything, because obviously it's not a very easy task to do. There are millions and millions of users. It's not the most simple thing. But for me, my personal opinion would be I'm happy to see that Facebook is taking some sort of step here. I've seen similar actions on Twitter, where they now have different links that come up if something's been flagged as possible conspiracy theory. They try to bring up some more reputable sources. But yeah, I'm of the opinion that it's kind of good that some of these corporations are now taking a stronger stake in the truth.
So, go ahead, Chris.
And to build off of that, because I also saw the Social Dilemma recently, so I kind of feel what you're getting off here. This is sort of Facebook and other social media companies trying to put the genie back in the bottle, because when they started these platforms 10, 15 years ago, the algorithms were designed by scientists to be addictive and to channel people down these rabbit holes that sort of end in, believing, all kinds of different far out beyond the mainstream theories. And it's not limited to one political side or the other. This is a phenomenon that really goes down to human psychology. So Facebook, Twitter, they're all trying to sort of put this genie back in the bottle, but I'm not really so sure that they can, because it's been so deep-seated and it's been allowed to take root in people's minds for so many years.
There needs to be more responsibility on the user and us as society. We can't.
Yes. Well, there's a lot of crazy people out there.
There are crazy people out there, but we need to make sure that before we jump into these waters, we know what we're jumping into. And by waters, I mean just engaging on social media. Like it is very easy to be caught up in fake stories and misleading information And sometimes the quickest information is not always the most true. And like it's the saying, like if you don't watch the news or read the news, you're uninformed. But if you do pay attention to the news, you're misinformed. So you're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't.
I feel like I'll say this and I'll wrap it up. You know, the idea that the user needs to have more responsibility. Like, I think it's easy for us to say that from our generation because we can, you know, we understand if we can tell a fake source when we see it. It's tougher for, you know, the older generations, the baby boomer generations, even people, you know, 40 and above who this is still relatively new in their life. They've only had Facebook, you know, for 10 out of their 40, 50 years of their life. We've kind of, I mean, at least for myself, we've grown up with it.
So Facebook is different because Facebook was
Twitter's complicated for someone who's not used to it. Of course. So when you are just thrown a bunch of information and it's, you know, little excerpts and you can't really tell if it's coming from somewhere that's true or not. And if you don't have that eye to look out for, I mean, our generation was kind of raised with the idea of like, don't believe everything you see on the internet, like read into it a little bit more. But I can see how, you know, people from past generations who weren't raised with the internet, they weren't raised with
boomers.
Boomers. They just adopted the internet.
It's confirmation bias.
For only a fifth of their lifespan. It's tougher for them to adapt to that. It's something they're not used to. But as you guys said, it has a lot to do with the algorithms that these creators have pushed onto these platforms. Like you guys said, Facebook announced the QAnon ban on QAnon earlier this month, 3 years after the conspiracy theory first began. Twitter and YouTube have also imposed varying degrees of restriction on the QAnon content. This quote comes from the CNN Business article again. The platforms have allowed QAnon content to grow and spread for years. There are now multiple Republicans running for Congress who have expressed support for QAnon. This has to do a little bit more with the divide that you're seeing with, you know, the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, and even outside of that, just different bureaus in the government. I'll give you two perspectives and we'll wrap this up. In August, President Donald Trump praised QAnon followers for supporting him. And on the other side of that, last year an FBI office warned that Q adherents are domestic terrorist threats. So, I mean, you have the FBI and the president making very different statements in regards to what QAnon is, this country. So it's a very fascinating thing we're watching unfold in front of our eyes. I'm interested to see how it affects Election Day in a few days. And I think this is going to be the next few years. This is just more information that will kind of leak out and explain what happened on Election Day. This potentially being a huge one that is still unwrapping from 2016. So it's a very big story that we'll have to watch over the years. Next up, we have a very perspective-altering story that really kind of sheds some light onto how other countries view the United States political scene. As we all know, Election Day is coming up, as we just previously talked about. Some mind-shattering numbers about how other countries are handling this. For this example, $284 million have already been wagered by the British bettors on the U.S. election outcome. I would love to see how that compares to like the Super Bowl. But just, I mean, to think about how big of a deal Election Day is, I think it's just hilarious to see how other countries are like betting on the outcome of this election, regardless of what it means for our country. But $250 million bet by British bettors. This has to be, that means, you know how many people are going to be watching this on election night? No one has any perspective on this.
I was going to say it's. Go ahead, Steven.
No, I was gonna say like people love America. I mean, like they like regardless of like if they like us or not, like they love everything that like we do, and like it's like reality TV for them, and like. I mean, like the past 4 years with Trump, it's very entertaining for people, and people want to make a bunch of money on it. I mean, hey, power to them.
I think love is the absolute wrong adjective. I don't think the world loves America at all.
Love in the way people love the Jersey Shore.
We are the Kardashians of the world.
People love the Kardashians.
We are currently a train wreck. It's embarrassing. Like we should be embarrassed.
But other countries love watching us. It's fun for them.
It's like a hate watch.
Yeah, it's like a guilty. What's your guilty pleasure?
I'm just
the United
saying,
States of America.
It's embarrassing. I think that we should have a respect for the office of president, and we should have a respect for who we are in the world and the responsibility that we carry. And the what we are supposed to be is shining a light of hope. And I think that light has diminished over the past 5-10 years, and it's just, it's embarrassing that we've turned into a sports betting prop. Also, what is the spread and how can I place a bet?
I'll tell you what, I think Biden opened at 100-1 after he had a slow start in the primaries.
Are those real numbers?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
So if you got in early on this, I mean, you could be making some serious coin.
Yeah, but if you had the future of Donald Trump in 2014, like that's
Or
serious.
408 almost went bankrupt. Wasn't it 408?
That's
408?
It's like
what?
race 398 or something.
No, like 2014, if you had the future on Donald Trump to win the election, that is
530.
mega money.
Yeah, it's like when Corey bet on the Marlins to win the World Series, and they got through the first round of the playoffs.
Well, it's different because Trump actually became president, whereas the Marlins crashed and burned in the playoffs.
That's true.
I feel almost embarrassed to say this, but I'm really looking forward to Election Day.
Oh, I'm not.
One, to see what happens, because this is just like, I think November 3rd, 2020 is going to be one of the days of my life that I will remember forever. It will just be something incredibly fascinating to think back on and be like, that day was wild. Because for one reason, it's going to be one of the first elections that it's like, it doesn't matter what happens that day. We might not find out for another week. So, like, Donald Trump could be winning by like 90%. Like, he could be killing it across the map. United States could be red. And still in a few days, like, Joe Biden could still win. It is going to be insane to watch on November 3rd.
Well, what's going to happen is, and what makes this such a weird election and kind of, I'm going to go there, kind of almost dangerous election, is the fact that it seems like one party is majority voting one way, the other party is by a large majority voting the other way, and that the Democrats are voting by mail and the Republicans are voting largely in person. Now, the question is, we know, I think the number was like 60 million or so voters have already voted and the votes have been received. In which states, and it kind of varies state by state, which states are those votes going to be counted at least partially and released on election night, and which ones aren't even going to start to be reported until the day after? I think Pennsylvania is going to be like, the mail-in ballots won't start to be counted until November 3rd. So you'll get a large Republican lead on election night in Pennsylvania, and then the Democratic votes will trickle in over a week. So it's going to be a very weird dynamic. My hope, and maybe I'm a bit naive, my hope is that, the media does a good job of communicating this to people so they don't get misled into thinking that one person has won the election before it's actually happened. I don't know if the media is going to be responsible with that, but that is what they really should do, because it's not a normal election. It should be treated like one.
To give some perspective, I said it earlier, I'd love to know what it compares to the Super Bowl. This article coming from CNN Business, once again, there is some light on what this kind of looks like compared to some other ones. I'm trying to pull it up again, but it's more than some of the biggest sporting events that we've seen over the past few years. Combined, it is more than the 2017 Floyd Mayweather versus Conor McGregor boxing match, more than the 2018 World Cup, more than the 2019 Grand National Horse Race, and more than the 2020 Super Bowl combined.
Yeah,
those are some of the biggest, the Floyd Mayweather Conor McGregor one was huge for Vegas, let alone, and the Super Bowl every year brings in record-setting numbers. This is so far beyond that. And the funny, you can bet on it if you're in this country, but I think it's just incredible to see that almost over a quarter of a billion people have done it outside this country. That just kind of goes to what Steven was saying. Like, people around the world just love watching the fire and the garbage fire the United States is right now, because it's pure entertainment to them.
To clarify, you're talking about the political world that is a garbage fire. This country overall has a lot of good redeeming things. I want to make that clear for the audience, but
there's
I think
some bad things too.
Absolutely, yeah. We need.
A world where there's pedophiles running amok throughout the Democrats. There's also that.
All right, so
we're doing great.
But Chris, I think you bring up a good point where with the mail-in, this is going to. You guys might be too young, and I was pretty young for it too. This is going to dwarf the 2000 election when it was Bush and John Kerry. I don't know what hanging Chad is, but
that was the whole thing.
Al Gore.
Al Gore. Yeah.
Al Gore. That's
The
what it
hanging
was. John
chad,
Kerry was still
punch
support.
ballot thing. Like,
Yeah.
It was not. It was a matter of 300 votes in Florida.
And yeah, and it was the mail-ins, and it was just everything, and it was like however many recounts. And I think it's just going to be scary and interesting to watch because on Tuesday night next week, it's not going to be resolved, and it's also not going to be resolved on Wednesday. And this is going to be. It's going to be interesting. It's a little nerve-wracking it's going to be interesting to see how different groups around the country respond to this based on what it is. So I'm watching anxiously.
Yeah, I definitely see where you're coming from, Austin. I do think it's important for the states to feel that they can go at their own pace, though.
Yeah.
I'll sacrifice time just to preserve like fairness in elections. I'd rather make that trade-off than kind of be forced to know right away. But I do see where you're coming from, and it definitely is the fact that it is such a contentious election.
Yeah.
So important for so many Americans. Like the fact that it won't be a one-time response is a little bit nerve-wracking.
So Trump is. I don't think anyone said this. Trump is plus 280 pretty much. So
Because he's incumbent.
No, he's the underdog and the better right now. He's better odds.
Sorry,
he's
I
got
don't know.
Really?
better betting
It's
odds.
like 35.
So if you bet $10, you have a chance to make a profit of 18. So you get your $10 back plus 18, making it plus 280. Right? I'm doing that right?
Yeah, you're doing that right.
Yeah. So plus 280, and then Biden is minus 50. So,
I feel like it's a slam dunk bet to bet Trump because he said he's not going to concede the office even if he loses. So,
Well, I think they're going
he's
by
never
who
gonna
gets
leave.
the most votes. So
no, it's not.
I mean-
It's not about popular vote either. It's who takes office.
Trump lost the power.
Yeah.
In 2000.
It's who
What the
takes
bookie
office.
rules are there?
yeah, but he
So-
can't just call squatter rights in the Oval Office. Like they'll drag him out if he
I
loses.
mean,
Like,
executive order that.
He's gonna fold.
don't
like
work
a
like that,
sack of
Steven.
Potatoes. He's gonna talk a big game. And he's gonna do what he's done his entire life, is fold and run away and shrink. And
So-
that's what's gonna happen.
Interesting on this as well, and then I'll kind of wrap this one up. This book is giving, and this is where all the money is going through, is giving Trump about a 35% chance, like you said, Jacob, to win. Those are better odds for the president than some U.S. forecasters are giving him. As of Friday morning, the political prediction site 538.com has Biden with an 89% chance of winning the vote. Seems very high to me. I think it's going to be very, very close. But, you're already seeing some states turn out, and this is kind of the thing the Democratic Party is leaning on. They think if they have a great turnout, just pure turnout, population vote, it's big. They think that's very good for their party. We've already started to see some staggering numbers. Texas, I think, has already had more vote-in or mail-in ballots than they had in the entire 2016 election for that state. There's already over 9 million ballots being mailed in or early votes sent in. So early numbers are showing that it's going to be a huge turnout. I mean, just from red states like Texas or swing states, I guess we don't really know what's going to happen with Texas. Did they vote blue last in 2016?
Texas? No.
No.
I think Trump
they have a
won.
they have a chance to go blue this time.
They have a blue
Yeah.
governor?
No, they almost. What's his face? Beto O'Rourke almost won it, but
That's
it
right.
was
That's
close.
Ted
right.
Cruz won it.
That's right.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
the big switch that they're looking at now is Amy McGrath and the guy from the Muppets, Mitch McConnell.
So
That's an insult to the Muppets to compare him to Mitch
that
McConnell.
honestly is.
So if you're betting on Trump here, as a recap, you have the odds of maybe even if he loses, he doesn't give up office. So we'll see how that works out with the books. And then on the other side, it looks like polls are leaning towards Biden in the swing states that really determined on the close margin in 2016. So it's really up in the air at this point. You really have no idea what's going to happen. We'll have to wait till November 3rd and probably much farther on to see what kind of comes in over the mail to really have some idea of who's taking home the bucks after this big betting day. Next up, the big headliner for coming out this week, NCAA quarterback star, projected number one pick in the draft by a long shot. I think we can all agree on. Possible future Jet, Chris Sakonis. Clemson quarterback Trevor Lawrence test positive for COVID-19 won't play against Boston College in Week 9. That means the Boston College Clemson game is going to be a nail biter at this point. But this is big news. Trevor Lawrence was among the leading front of college players before the season started, trying to convince, in this case, the ACC to play a season. Some of the other big names we saw, Justin Fields from the Big Ten, but he was definitely, I'd say, one or two of the biggest guys, the outspoken people, about pretty much saying, listen, we want to play football so bad, we're almost like willing to take this risk, and we don't really care if we get COVID. Like, we are more caring about having a season.
Well, I'm going to find his direct quote.
He was also of the opinion that it's safer for the players to be in school playing than to be in other locations.
Listen, I think there's something to what he's saying. You know, there are players who come from very tough areas, and you don't know what the communities are like, especially down south. But the solution to that could have been bring the players on campus, just don't play football. So just like give them
what they were all going to do anyway before, back when the Big Ten and the Pac-12 and all those conferences said we're going to postpone the season. Like, they didn't send everyone back to their hometowns. Like, they stayed on campus. So it's kind of a bad argument.
That wouldn't have satisfied like Trevor Lawrence in this case. It was really it was more about he wanted to play football. And this is, I mean, a monumental story. He's one of the most highly touted prospects coming out of college. I mean, is there anyone bigger in the past decade?
Andrew Luck.
Yeah, Luck would be the last one, really.
And there was some contention about who was going to go
Tua
first in that draft. No, not Tua. He wasn't even number one last year.
Yeah, before he got hurt, everything was trying to tank for Tua.
But he was still an Alabama quarterback. There's still apprehension when it comes to
Jets don't even have to try to tank.
Yes.
Yeah, I know.
But again, getting back to the COVID aspect of this is huge. Biggest game of possibly college football so far this year is in 10 days. It's supposed to be Notre Dame, Clemson. Now a lot of fans are worried, is that even going to happen with Trevor Lawrence? That's really what they care about, and which is kind of sad. And that's the big concern. But Trevor Lawrence has COVID.
I'll tell you this much, and COVID's no joke, but you know what is a joke? The New York Jets. And if I'm Trevor Lawrence, honestly, I think I might have COVID for the next 2 years because I will do anything to avoid playing for that franchise. I mean, really, what? I think Trevor Lawrence's best case scenario here is ACC calls everything, gives everybody a whole nother year of eligibility. Trevor Lawrence doesn't have to even worry about figuring out how to avoid the draft for a year.
Do you think the Jets won't have the number one pick next year as well?
I mean, he's
if they don't fire Adam Gase, yeah.
I think, it's so on the front end, I hope Trevor Lawrence is okay. I hope he has no lasting health issues. I hope he recovers safely. I hope his family's safe, right? So blanket statement, I hope all of those things. I think this is a product of irresponsibility by the NCAA and by all of the big conferences. These are unpaid players that are risking their future, they're risking their health, and they're risking the health of their families as well. The
problem with this is, though, they are, like, in this case, happy to do so. Like, this is the problem.
But they shouldn't be given that opportunity. People that have more information and should be the responsible ones in this situation shouldn't even be having a college football season. These are students. They're not letting students back at school, yet they can have these guys line up inches away.
I think all the ACC schools
and look
most
at
of the Big Ten ones are too.
Look at those states and look at how those COVID rates are going. We're in a third surge. It's irresponsible.
To be honest, the big thing about Clemson that is really surprising to me, if you guys watched a game on TV there, it looks like their stadium's at 50% capacity.
Oh my gosh.
Packed.
Well, what they did is they put it at, I think it was 25% capacity, but the way they laid out the seats was like they're all in like columns.
Yeah.
So like you're 6 feet apart from someone on your left, on your right, but there's someone sitting directly in front of you. I don't know if in South Carolina they think that COVID only travels sideways, but
they do.
So it's like not every other, but most other countries were able to get COVID under control. Yet because Jim Bob in South Carolina doesn't have a pro football team besides the Panthers, which don't count, they need to watch their college football, so they're going to risk the lives of most of these students that aren't going to go on and get drafted. So they're risking their bodies already for an unpaid thing.
They had an opt-out, so the problem is like these players, it's weird because it's like someone should be stepping up to do something, and maybe they shouldn't have.
Money, it's money.
But there's
Well,
money.
yeah, it's a $1 billion franchise. Like they're gonna get their product out there on the field. And they're gonna make their money. They're not gonna be operating at a loss.
Players also view this like the guys who are borderline NFL. They're like, all right, I need to play out the season. I need to have a really good season because there might be millions of dollars on the table for me. Like Trevor Lawrence isn't that guy. Like he's gonna go first round. He's probably gonna be number 1 overall no matter what, unless he has like a bad injury.
But they have eligibility for next year, don't they?
Depends. Seniors won't. Yeah, they would.
Okay.
But
No, they do,
that wasn't
but
100% clear.
Problem solved.
Yeah, and the other thing with like Trevor Lawrence or like any other senior is like, yeah, even if you have your eligibility, you could come back another year, but you'd be foregoing an NFL contract. You'd be risking, serious non-COVID related injuries. Like it's not as simple as do you have the eligibility. There's one other point I want to make. I don't think it's necessarily fair to lump all 5 of the conferences together because like the Big Ten and the Pac-12 were a lot more cautious than the SEC, the ACC, the Big 12. The Big Ten basically said like, we're going to wait until we have like really rigorous testing, really rigorous protocols. They screen every athlete an extra week beyond the 2 weeks.
Yeah, doesn't Ohio State have a bunch of cases
on the football team?
What's the Big Ten school?
No.
A bunch of cases.
Rutgers
Wisconsin does.
Wisconsin, that's Big Ten. So like just because
it's being contained in a much better way.
Just because you refrain from the greed for 8 more weeks than everyone else,
There
is no debate if whether or not the Big Ten and the Pac-12 handled this better than the SEC and ACC.
Okay.
They used the SEC and the ACC almost like guinea pigs to see how this worked out. And the data they were taking from it, there wasn't mass outbreaks going on in the first few weeks. They noticed, all right, this is kind of happening. Okay, there's some cases popping up. Teams are able to handle it in decent situations. And the good news is most of these players are all living in confined communities on college campuses. Not saying that it isn't dangerous for people who are in that age group, but it's a lot less dangerous compared to other age groups. Okay, they noticed that it was working out okay, and the Big Ten and the Pac-12 saw that, and they used the other conferences like guinea pigs. There is no debate of whether or not the Big Ten and the Pac-12 handled this in a much better fashion.
Okay, but that's such a surface level argument. That's like just because something's less worse doesn't mean it isn't bad. It's like just because you do manslaughter instead of murder doesn't mean you're a good person.
I don't think that's a fair comparison.
In the eyes of the law, it is.
Are they playing this year?
Yes.
Are the students paid?
No, but they can opt out if they would like.
Okay, so they shouldn't even put them in that position.
Why?
Are the students back at school? So they're giving preferential treatment. Are you back at Rutgers?
Rutgers is the only one that's not back. And by the way, if those athletes were back, I'm pretty sure Rutgers football players could still live on campus if they opt out of the season.
Okay. If you're shooting for less worse than other corrupt conferences in college football, congratulations, you've achieved your goal.
I don't think the option was there to not have the season.
Why?
The Big Ten. There's millions of dollars there. You know how many small jobs?
So it's a broken system.
You know how many small jobs are dependent?
Tear it down.
And just eliminate tens of thousands of jobs.
No, take care of your employees.
How do you take care of the employees if the games are not happening?
Don't have a corrupt system.
I mean, they're in each athletic department's in like tens of millions of dollars deficits, even having a season.
So
let's just go with stadiums.
How much does the AD at Ohio State make?
Let's just go with your idea.
Oh no, if you're saying Austin, if you're saying that athletes don't have enough rights, they're not they should be compensated. I agree with that. Like I'm not like disagreeing with any of that, but I just don't think it's fair to lump in all the conferences in college football in the same boat because the Big Ten and the Pac-12 had medical experts who in August said, we don't feel comfortable with you proceeding. They listened to them in spite of the money that they would lose. They postponed the season. And then when the testing protocols and other scientific information changed, the doctors changed their point of view and the schools proceeded. So I don't think it's really fair to compare the Big Ten.
The backlash the Big Ten took when they made that decision, they were fine with taking that because
what backlash?
Did you not open your eyes?
I absolutely
Ohio State did.
They were getting
the Big Ten.
The Big Ten was getting ripped to shreds by the average college football.
Troy, they got ripped to shreds.
Nebraska was threatening to leave the conference, and so was Ohio State. Like
they were not going to get me to feel any sympathy for a corrupt system.
Who's asking for sympathy?
You're asking me to say, oh, it's less worse.
It is less
lump
worse.
them all in.
It's not as bad.
Okay.
What's the ideal situation here? You just don't have the season?
Forfeit a season.
And you just put employees out of a job. That's better because there's always
Which
downside.
Employees are you putting out of a job?
The people who work at the stadiums.
Okay, those are seasonal positions.
Okay, that's still 3 to 4 months worth of jobs that they work. Where do they work now? Where do they go? You can't just look at a big picture. college,
They're not
there's
letting-
corruption.
they're not
Athletic
letting-
directors and coaches
so
are paid way
all-
too much.
All the
There's-
concessions are open at these stadiums, Troy? Are the concessions open? Because I would imagine they're not.
They're still employees.
So at SHI
There's still
Stadium,
plenty of employees
SHI
out there.
Stadium, the concessions
Not
are going to be
as,
still.
Rutgers is also one of the much more secured, I guess, or
Conservative.
no, not conservative. They're the much more controlled area, I guess.
Cautious.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
they're being conservative with what they're doing.
Sure. But there's a lot other smaller jobs that come into it.
Like,
There's not just concessions people who work there. There's also security people who work there. There's also
still campus security, aren't there? You just said all
not
the students
campus
are back.
security, people who work these events.
Okay, those are seasonal temporary positions.
So
Those are not
those jobs
full-time
don't count?
positions. I'm not saying they don't count, but those aren't full. That's not like a full-time. You get
So
your benefits.
let me just say, you're not a player. You're not even a fan.
I am a fan.
No, you're not.
Okay.
Of what team?
I enjoy college football.
Okay, so there's other then, but if you don't want to watch it, you don't have to watch it. So I'll just say that. If the players are okay with going through this path, you're a Big Ten player, you're saying, let's see how it goes for the ACC. Let's see how it goes for the SEC. Let's see how it works. And after that, the players are okay with playing.
And they've been back how many weeks?
They've been back for about 5 weeks now.
Okay.
With training and the game included.
And there's a big outbreak in
There's
Wisconsin.
The Wisconsin outbreak wasn't tied to football. The Wisconsin outbreak happened because a bunch of the players went partying after they beat Illinois in week 1.
Okay.
Which is
That-
part of
that
the
had nothing to do with
That's
college
football.
football. That's
No,
the
it's not
college
football because they
experience.
didn't
Yes,
have
it
to
is.
do that. They were stupid and they put themselves in unnecessary risk. That's not on the
Okay.
Big Ten.
13 of the
That is
14
on the players.
That's who you're asking to be responsible for the health.
I would
Okay,
argue,
but they're going to go party if there's no football anyway. So what difference does it make?
I'd argue that a football player is more disciplined than the average college student.
What are your reasons for wanting
That's
college
debatable.
football back? What are your reasons for wanting college football back? There's selfish reasons,
It's not
It's
me
not
wanting. The
purely
players,
selfish.
if the players are willing to do it,
but they have extra eligibility.
but they're still willing to do it. That just speaks to my point even more. They are the ones that this is directly involving. They are the ones putting their health on the line.
Okay.
If they are okay with seeing what the SEC and the ACC did, and they're saying, you know what, I'm still willing to do it. I want to do it.
Okay, just because they made that decision doesn't mean I have to agree with it, and I don't.
Okay, that's fine, but it's still happening. So
Okay, it's happening, and we're having a podcast where we talk about things, and I'm talking about it. I think it's a bad decision. I think it's focused on money, and I think that's what you get when you have
course
a
it's focused
capitalist
on money.
society that's focused on money and putting players at risk and just going about this in a corrupt way.
Big Ten, less corrupt way,
Less worse.
much less worse, if that makes sense. Next up, we got one final story for you guys. This one coming from the Independent. There is a lot of money floating around in space. And I don't mean that for Bezos or for Musk to send rockets out there. I mean there is like almost physical money out there. There is an asteroid floating around in space that is worth $10 quintillion. And
Like
it could be
the
the only one of its kind. So an asteroid with an estimated worth of $10 quintillion could shed light on the formation of the solar system. The valuable piece of space debris, which is floating in our solar system asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, is worth 10 followed by 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18 zeros, just for some perspective. It's approximately 140 miles in diameter, is 1/4 the length of the entire UK. The asteroid is one of the largest objects in the belt. The reason this particular asteroid, which is classified as a 16 Psyche, is worth so much is that it's composed almost totally of iron and nickel. Most asteroids are predominantly rocky or icy, with some having a slight degree of metal. Few have been seen that are almost totally comprised of the precious materials. Studying this particular asteroid could reveal the secrets of the solar system and provide the opportunity to study an object that is akin to the inside of the planet, like Earth. Unlike the Earth's crust and mantle, which has a high mineral composition, the planet's core is made almost completely of metal, specifically iron and nickel. That is a lot of iron and nickel. I said it was, half the size of the UK? A quarter of the length of the UK.
Before or after Brexit?
I don't know. Current UK.
Oh, okay.
Current UK.
Well, that changes things.
That's
wow.
a
That's a
lot.
lot of money.
Well, that's a lot of iron and nickel, first of all. But I think it's much more than just the materials. It like they said, it could shed a lot of light on, how this all started, like literally all started. It always amazes me just the kind of stuff that is just floating around and how little we matter and how much it doesn't even matter if players are playing in college football because there's just $10 quintillion floating around in space.
I'll tell you this much, and Elon Musk, you better not steal my idea.
He probably has the resources.
Hold on.
He does listen. He
put a car in space. Now this time he's going with the Tesla truck. He's gonna have a nice little trailer at the end
to show the haul.
Drive all the way out there, and he could probably get a couple quintillion dollars out of it.
My Tesla truck has the hauling power of a quarter of the UK.
So my question is,
in space, it actually is possible.
So
it's gotta get a push.
Who is this?
Then it comes towards Earth. It's a great idea.
Yeah, and then he just uses a big baseball mitt.
So, question: who's buying this?
It's not like no one. Okay, for reference, we only have the combined net worth of the entire world is only like $329 trillion. So we can't even pool our money into chips.
So we can't even afford this asteroid.
This is just the
that's one nice
projected worth of what this is.
So what you're saying?
We can't get it. Like it's not.
But projected worth by who?
By
the value of
materials.
nickel.
The materials.
The value of nickel. That's a lot.
It's not like someone's like, I'll pay $10 trillion if you can pick it up for me.
Who's going to like a asteroid
it's
auction?
Between Mars and Jupiter. You think we're gonna get this sometime?
Honey, I would like to place a bid on the asteroid.
We haven't even stepped foot on Mars. You think we're gonna go out there and bring back something the size of the quarter of UK?
If it
we put a robot on it. We put a robot on Mars.
Push, everyone push.
Yeah.
There's no weight in space.
Take the rock and push it somewhere else.
Elon Musk out there with sheer willpower.
Just shoot a grappling hook and pull it back. There's no weight in space, and it'll come flying back towards Earth, which is a bad idea. Then we will.
Listen, if you're gonna let the fact that we never landed on Mars deter you from following your dreams, and like you're just never gonna make it in this asteroid mining business.
We did land on Mars.
No, humans did not land on Mars.
Conspiracy.
I'm sorry. Have you seen The Martian with Matt Damon?
So I'm taking. There's the whole conspiracy.
That.
There's the conspiracy that we didn't land on the moon. I'm going a step farther. I'm saying we actually landed on Mars.
We're from Mars.
I think so. Yeah.
Bro, we're from Mars.
Men are from Mars. Women are from Venus.
That's how we met.
Exactly.
On this asteroid, because this asteroid's between Mars and Jupiter.
Guys, I'm just saying if we could figure out some way to get out there and bring this thing back, and not like kill the entire planet in the process,
or ourselves,
or kill the entire planet in the process.
Can we pull this off before election day? We can somehow figure that one out. But
if we could place a bet,
we just. I'm gonna take. What is it, Chris? What is it in soccer that neither team wins? We can.
No, that's just soccer. That's just soccer.
It's a tie. It's a draw.
It's a draw. It's gonna be a draw because we're gonna bring this asteroid back. And it's,
Did you not find the word for draw?
No, but isn't there like a betters thing for it?
Why would we?
No.
It's a draw. You can get the money line for a win, a loss, or a draw.
Soiled it.
Push.
Soiled it.
Push.
That's not soccer.
Well, I think
that's betting.
Are there any ever lines in soccer that you're betting on a 0-0 game?
Apparently,
because I would take that bet every single time.
I think that's probably a prop bet you can do. I've never done it before, but the lines in soccer are interesting because you have three different outcomes. The underdog could have
we're not talking about soccer, Chris. I'm sorry, we're not talking about soccer.
Back to the asteroid and hypothetical bet here. I like how he said he would place a bet on the election after we got hit by an asteroid.
No, before.
Yeah, but you would place the bet
before and then get.
How are you landing this asteroid?
How are you going to collect on this bet?
It's a meteor. Actually, I think it's a meteor. Is it a meteor?
Direct deposit? Does it just like?
No, it's an asteroid when it's still in the.
Asteroid's orbit. Okay, so asteroid, meteor, meteorite, and
some alien in space, like a way later time, picks up the internet.
These are all fine details.
He was right. He called it.
These are all very fine details that we can smooth out once we figure out how to get this thing back.
Is this the asteroid that Astros were named after?
That's a good question. What are
you see what's gonna happen? We're gonna go. A young Italian explorer named Christopher Columbus is gonna go to that asteroid. And he's gonna realize there's 3 million native asteroidians there, and he's gonna assimilate them into American culture and create new America on that asteroid.
The human race messes up things again for other people in our race,
or makes it better.
I feel like he needs a better name.
I don't think we can just change that.
I think we need something better because
better this time.
Yeah. Because if we're gonna have to name
like a raper or a pillager,
like places, if he discovers or if he discovers for us
No.
at least a place. We
So-
need to think of a more catchy
Yes,
name.
yeah, we just call him Elon Musk.
Muskanites.
Muskies.
So where are we gonna pretend like we're going? Because last time when we messed this up, we thought we were in a completely different place.
What are you talking about?
When we went over, the first people landed. They thought they were in India.
Oh,
Where do we think we're going? with
Pluto.
This is Pluto. The
I
meteor is
think
Pluto.
we
This isn't
think-
where I parked.
we
my
Look,
think
car.
we
we're
brought
going-
Pluto back.
Oh, we think we're going to Mars, but we're not actually.
We've never been there. We don't know what it's like there.
I think they still think they're going to India.
That's true. Yeah, maybe we do.
Cold
Did we
India.
finally make it to India?
Right. Yeah, India doesn't exist.
I've never
That's
been.
that's the real QAnon conspiracy.
All right,
You
I
heard it
think
here first, folks.
that's what QAnon's really pushing. That's what Facebook is making sure doesn't get out.
That's what we do.
They don't want that conspiracy to get out.
That's what we do here. We get
They
to the
don't
bottom
want
of
you to
shit.
know the truth.
I think that's gonna do it for us on this episode.
If you listen to this whole thing, thank you. Drop us a like, a follow, a
You deserve it.
subscribe.
Yeah, good
We'll
effort.
Rate us
follow you
5
back because
stars.
you deserve it.
Like Jesus, thank you for sticking through this.
That's-
This is painful.
Again, that's going to do it for us on Can We Just Talk? Once again, Troy DeSavino, Jacob Berg, Austin DC,
Yeah.
Chris Sakona, Steven Nelson joining us for this episode. Make sure to stay tuned. We've got some really exciting news coming up. I'll just hint at something called Polar Media, so make sure to stay tuned. Something's coming out this week for that. Make sure to drop us a follow on Twitter, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you may be listening. But thanks again for listening. Again, this was Can We Just Talk?